This next session, we've got Andy Dunn to talk about the future of work. So the idea behind this is, in that first session we were talking about digital transformation specifically, so this is more about how we work, I guess, at any level. Some of you are individuals, entrepreneurs or freelancers, some of you work for bigger corporates, some of you are in the startup world at one stage or another. But how we actually work, what that means for us as individuals, how that's likely to develop. So Andy's the founder of Creators Club, which supports and inspires creative business owners with personal and practical elements of being self-employed. I think it's the right description. He's also a leadership, wellbeing and personal growth coach, and he's the author of Feeling Lost and Finding Your Way, which is about navigating uncertainty and also how that relates to mental health and wellbeing as well. So he can tell you more about that, and if you want to talk to him at the end, then you'll have time as well. So just to kick off, can you tell me a bit, Andy, about what Creators Club does, what it was set up to do?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'll tell you the purpose for it first, I think is probably more important. So I left university with a degree in furniture design, which was great, I had a first class degree, and I was very good at making things. Had some very good perfectionist tendencies, but very little understanding of what commercialization meant about marketing. I wasn't confident to stand up and express myself. I didn't do a lot of networking, all these things, and I didn't truthfully think I'd be self-employed. I planned to get a really cool design job with a really cool agency, and I didn't really understand how to translate what I did into that world. And then fast forward about 8 years, I ended up moving more from designing things to innovation, leading workshops and events. And then after working with big corporates and lots of schools, became passionate about translating my experiences of leading workshops to help independent people collaborate more effectively. I'm a big believer that with our rise of self-employment, independent people working, not only is it super lonely at times, which I feel and felt, but also we need to collaborate and work together more effectively. So Creators Club was built upon the premise of lots of independent people. Instead of showing up to a networking event to swap business cards, show up with the intention to help each other and to support each other, and then we can all do more together. It started in London in 2017, and now we're in 4 regions across the UK, with our 5th opening this year. And it's led as a cooperative movement by people who are creators in their own right, real diverse community, and hopefully, if you ever come to our events, you'll feel the genuine, caring, cooperative spirit. That's what Creators Club's there to do. And I also do work in schools with young people and head teachers around school culture change, and then in businesses with big brands like Adidas and Santander and Kering and some big brands as well. But at the heart, it's my experience of struggling navigating self-employment. And I've done it 8 years now, and will probably be in this world for another 50 years. So the selfish part was I also wanted really cool, talented people of different skill sets around me to help me, and I can help other people. So that's what Creators Club is all about. And yeah, the future of work conversation, I want to make this a conversation, so any thoughts? And the well-being piece, depression and anxiety and nervous breakdowns in my early 20s were a wonderful catalyst, I would say now. Having that perspective helped me think about what our purpose is in terms of work and finding something that is worthwhile, but also looking after self-care and introducing me to yoga and mindfulness, lots of stuff which I gently infuse into companies wherever I go, which is nice, in a way that feels congruent with the leadership stuff that people want to do. So that's a bit about me, and I have a Geordie accent from Newcastle, which is kind of there, but I have to adapt it a lot and make myself understand it. So there's a context piece.
Great. So one question I had about that, because this came up when we were talking in the previous session about business transformation, and the kind of brutal view on that was that companies don't really want to, they expect people to develop themselves a lot of the time. So even if you work as an employee within a big company, you've kind of got to treat yourself as your own business, if you like, or you treat yourself as an entrepreneur to an extent. And increasingly people are going that way. More and more people are starting their own businesses, or they have kind of portfolio careers as freelancers. They're not working for one company for a long period of time. Do you think that that's been, people are doing that out of choice, as in it's a more available option for people now, or it's out of necessity, as in it's just the way employment is going, the kind of gig economy, I guess, idea?
think it's both. I mean, for me it was necessity 8 years ago because I felt like I need to kind of create the sense of job or role I wanted. For some people, they have work from home situations, there's parenting situations, but from the business point of view, having a flexible, agile workforce you can call upon is better strategically in terms of managing cash flow projects. It also means you can access diverse talent when you need it, and that kind of way of working is becoming more popular. Who knows in the future whether things will revert back because people like the idea of the uncertainty and the variety, but actually people want the security of a safe job. I don't know.
I mean, I guess from business's point of view, the problem they've got is things are changing so quickly that they don't know what they'll need in terms of staffing or people in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time. So it makes more sense to have, as you say, flexible people you can bring in at different times. Do you think everyone should, even if they do have, a full-time job, salary 9 to 5, think of themselves more as a mini business in terms of developing their own capabilities, marketing themselves, having almost a business development plan where am I going to get different revenue streams?
I think it's certainly, I wouldn't want to think of myself as a mini business. I want to think of myself as Andy most days of the week, to give that human element. But I think being practical that people typically change jobs every couple of years, we've got to think about how we remarket ourselves or network effectively, and that broad skill set I think is really important to develop. Like if I do work in schools at the moment, I want to encourage people to think about how they cope with adaptability and adapting to change. Like do the IQ intelligence stuff and the emotional intelligence stuff, and also do the how do we adapt. And so, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I think part of what you've already touched on is this idea of flexible working, and that often means remote work. Certainly for solo workers, that's often you're working from home, or maybe you've got a co-working space somewhere. How does that, what does that mean for the building of your professional networks and just your day-to-day interactions? Like if you're working from home, you don't really have the sort of cliche water cooler chats. You don't have necessarily the serendipitous conversations where you just pass someone in the corridor. Do you have to make sure you're working hard to find other ways to create that kind of interaction?
Before I answer that, it's a great question, I'm going to answer it. Can I just check in the room, where are you all? Who here is self-employed, who works for a company? What's the sort of, can I just hear a little bit of where people are? Who here is working for a big company? And of those people, are you working remotely from home, or are you working in the offices? Combination? Office? Anyone here self-employed, working, co-working, time of life? Couple? Okay. So I'm going to answer this generally then. Mm-hmm. So I think I believe a lot in serendipity, as in that we have interactions for reasons. So I hope today that some of us will connect. There'll be a really good reason why I'm here today, why you're here today, and we can create value out of it. I'm quite an introverted person, despite being sat on a stage talking to lots of people. I'm very introverted, and sometimes if I go into a big room or a big group, I shrink up a little bit and I don't want to talk to people. But I've also learned to be a bit braver with my actions. And if I'm sat on a train going somewhere, I'll have a conversation with someone sitting opposite me, and they might be a really cool, interesting person. And I think it's important to look beyond our office or wherever we are and just see people as potentially really interesting people, and not to think I'm going to work with this person. But if we have the intention that this person could be really cool, really interesting, and I want to get to know that person, then we've got more chance of serendipitous, valuable interactions. So if we increase the amount of conversations we have and start thinking about it from a collaborative viewpoint, not I want something from this person, what can they give me? I think that is a more important mindset to have.
So it's almost having this conversation without an agenda in mind,
and be welcoming. Like, to give an example, I went to an education event recently where 20 people who were really sort of thought leading in education came together. We were sat around this really posh room, and there was a waiter, I say relatively posh, he was in King's Cross St Pancras, thing, wasn't that posh. So just forget what I'm talking about posh relatively. But the waiter that came in was serving us drinks, and somebody says, I wonder what he thinks of this. And we were all giving our views upon how education could evolve some people there would be in private schools, some in schools around the world. And this waiter said he'd been at 21 schools in his upbringing, 21 schools around the world. And his favourite experience was spending 3 months in Colorado with wild dogs and teaching him about a mindful connection with the universe and humanity. And out of nowhere, we thought we were the experts in the room, and this random person serving us drinks and stuff added so much value. And I guess in the terms of serendipity, the more I live like this, I want to extend how I connect with people, how we connect with people, and just trust that other people can add things into the conversation. And I guess the cliche water cooler thing is about expanding our perspective, because I think sometimes we can get lost in our focus on a task and we can get consumed by it, and then someone from a completely different avenue can shift our thinking and disrupt our thought pattern. I think that's important. And when we have so many deadlines and projects to manage, sometimes that little change of perspective can help us bring us back to what is the reason we're doing this for, or how can we see it from a different perspective. So I think when we're working people can work in co-working space like this and just be on their desk on their own, or in a big office, or at home. I think those patterns of getting lost in our little world can happen. And I think if people do have work from home days, there's two aspects. One is making sure we spend time with people, so we're not having cabin fever and we're not having human connection. And for me, some days that's going to swing dancing on a Tuesday night, or which is more conversational than doing yoga, or it's going to an event like this where I talk to people. But if I don't, I need to just listen to myself and think, am I feeling unproductive, and would I benefit from having a conversation with someone? And then whether it's on social media with one of my contacts or a WhatsApp message, I want to have a connection with somebody. I think human connection face to face is more important. And when Creators Club started at our events, people were trying to live stream them and record them. And I was like, I don't want people who are independent working at home thinking they can just sit and watch this, because for me the magic is when we're connected and we can talk and have a hug if we need to have a hug, and be like, it's going to be okay this week or this month, and be able to look someone in the eye and feel their energy and their presence. That was the drive behind us having the live face-to-face events, where we can create something together that we couldn't ever do behind a screen. But I think the connection can happen both ways.
And so it seems like, digital is kind of always accessible. We've always got our smartphone in our pocket, we can always do that. But in my experience, I tend to agree with you, particularly if you're working remotely, or often with remote teams, which some of the people in larger companies may have that as well, where you've got a team in a different country or a different location than you can. That actually, you can't have those face-to-face meetings as much, but that makes them more important. You do have them at some point, you put some emphasis on them. That's when people can actually connect with each other.
But I think there's a scale of face-to-face in person, then there's FaceTime and Zoom and things, then there's sending voice notes, and then there's an email. And again, something I'm really passionate about with people I work with in team is that as often as possible I make it as personal as possible. I think sometimes we can get lost in email chains and when a 30-second voice note can say more than a back and forth email. So I think there's ways to personalise connections in this modern digital world. And I think there's a time and place for that. But I would always try and do face-to-face stuff, even if it's Zoom, if I can. Just because people get that sense of connection, and even if it's 10 people, it's not always practical or possible. And face-to-face, people shouldn't be flying all the time to meet up with people if they're working remotely. That's not, from a sustainability point of view, always the smart or right thing to do. But there's an element, I think, the connection outweighs we've got all these conflicting pressures, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's about choosing what is the right one for your team or the people. And if it's working with external partners and providers as well, it's, not getting lazy and just emailing people when a phone call or a FaceTime is what nicer.
You're right, it's a kind of it escalates the scale of contacts there. And certainly when I've worked with remote teams, so I've worked in one job where there's 11 different markets around the world, and you're right, getting on a plane isn't practical, good for the environment, or very good for you if you've done a lot of wrong flying as well. But we did try to get them together maybe at the start of the project, because once you've made that face-to-face contact with someone, the other communications become a lot easier afterwards. Whereas particularly if you've got a language barrier as well, if your only relationship with someone is over email, it's quite stilted, it's quite difficult to build up any kind of bond.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not slaying email. I think email's got a wonderful place, and especially I've managed a lot of introverted designers to stereotype, and they will say a lot more on a thorough email than they will on a phone call. Like I'll ask for feedback and say like, how are things working with the project with us, and they're like, cool. And then I'll get this long email afterwards. And I'm like, just tell me, I want to know. But for them, their communication style, they want to think it through, make it thorough. And I'm like, cool, I understand this. And then the next day we have a chat. So I think for some people there's a different personality type and communication platform that suits them. And as managers and leaders, we need to be able to understand what is right for the people, not just what's right for us in different situations. And I've definitely learned that the hard way sometimes in thinking face-to-face or Zoom is right when it's actually not right. So I think in the world of digital trends and things, it's also remembering that every person is individual and different, and they will have their preferences, and we've got to be able to adapt and accommodate for other people's needs too.
Yeah, and I guess set some boundaries and some guidelines. I think particularly in bigger organisations about how those tools are used. Because I'm with you, I don't think there's anything, and maybe I'm an introvert as well and I prefer using email, but I don't think there's anything wrong with email. The things that we hate about email are to do with how people use email. And the same is now true of Slack. People who put Slack in place, it's got out of control, it now dominates, or other messaging systems now dominate. Everyone's expected to be all over them all the time, and that's just another stress. Presumably setting some boundaries, expectations about how that communication is supposed to take place as well.
Yeah.
Accommodating people's preferences as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And like an even example, like I was connecting with someone on social media recently, and then we went from there to a phone, and I sent a voice note to say like, I'm loving connecting with you, but here's me, here's who I am. And then we've got a really strong connection face to face now. But I guess it was taking that middle step to how can I just show some personality and genuine care. And even a lot of big companies I work with, like big corporate clients, some of our work and the leadership work is helping people build stronger connection with their partners and stakeholders and making things more personal when it's right as well. But some of the patterns as well, we get used to working in a certain way and we get into habits. And sometimes we need to disrupt them and change the way we work because because it helps the other person and it helps the productivity, which is what a lot of things come back to.
Yeah, and this is again something that came up a little bit in the first session is how do we learn this stuff? Like because you don't really get taught it any time in your formal education how to do this, and even in work training you might get taught how to do a presentation better or some stuff like that. These so-called soft skills, we're back to again. There doesn't seem to be a full way of learning. It seems to be a bit. You said trial and error and learning the hard way. That's certainly how I pick things up. Is it just something we do through conversations with co-workers, or is there a better way to approach it?
I think for me now, it's having lots of different mentors in different areas of my professional life. Like there's people that are great at digital marketing that I speak to, people that when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, I will ring and they will coach me through what is the choice I'm trying to make. So I think having different people, like different mentors or coaches or go-to people, and some of them can be your peers as well. But I think for me, that's how I learn a lot now. That speeds up learning as well. And then also like there's great books in the world as well. And to give an example, I reread 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I read 15 years ago for the first time. And I read it again recently. And one of my friends texted me saying, is it any good? Can you share the highlights? And I was like, well, there's 7 highlights in it. but like people are lazy and don't want to read the book. Like, you can't just share the 7 highlights and be like, you know it. You've got to read the book. And you've got to like read that one habit that is really uncomfortable. And you're like, why am I resisting reading this? And then you've got to go on that introspective journey. And then you've got to apply the stuff and get it a bit wrong and then do it. But I think we also have a culture of like, we're impatient with stuff. And I'm all for like productivity and efficiency, but if someone's probably spent a few years writing a book and distilled loads of knowledge down, maybe you need to spend 2 days reading it and not try and read it in 2 minutes. And I think I don't want to go on a rant about laziness, but I think we have got a culture of like, I want this faster and quicker, like what are the top tips? And like, I can tell you the top tips, but you won't like deeply understand it, that you won't connect with it and live it because it's just sort of gone in and gone out. So I think that is an interesting culture thing as well, of like the meme online world of like this little thing, we're like, okay, there's a little quote or a little bit of advice, but we're not
Just
deeply
one great
understanding
tip,
stuff.
clickbait headlines that are this one thing will change your life.
Yeah, and if we want to go through a thing where we want to make a change of career, or we want to take a step to leadership, or we want to change something, like change isn't easy. We've got to acknowledge that we've got to read that book properly, or we've got to go to the counselling course properly, we've got to go to a mentor for 6 months. We've got to like go through a process and not think things happen really quickly, because in essence anything meaningful, whether we're building a business or rebuilding a relationship or like trying something, things can take time. And I think acknowledging that time process is important as well. And I can be guilty of this too. Sometimes I want to skim past a chapter and I'm like, patience, like read the book, or like I want to leave a yoga class like right at the end instead of just chilling from it. Like I can be impatient too, and I need to remember as I get busier and I travel a lot with work, I fly a lot, I'm moving around a lot, and I need to be able to balance all of that in between times, so I'm conscious and I make the most of it. In the serendipitous stuff, like there could be great serendipity here, but if I'm in too hurry to leave at like 2:31, like I miss the serendipity. Like it was here all along, but I don't make the most of it. And I think that's a conversation that I want to also have in terms of how we make the most of things and don't flit around too much and think we're too busy and too important or too in a hurry.
I guess it's taking time to observe what's around you, to notice things. If you're in a rush all the time, you head down and you don't see those people, those things, that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And the serendipity was there, and I hope it's here. Like I want to hang around afterwards and talk, and spend some time and think what you will do and help them work together, help each other, and that is where serendipity happens.
One of the things you were talking about is you're an introvert, but you've obviously set up quite an extrovert business, and it feels like the world of the future. I grew up in the world where everyone had to get extroverted business, and everybody had to driven, etc. Whereas now it feels like the world of the introverts coming, and alpha females, beta females, and that. How do you think that's going to change? So what were some challenges, for instance, to you as an introvert, setting up quite an extrovert business?
Yeah, I mean, it is, so as in, I spend a lot of time designing training programs and learning events. I've written one book, I'm writing a few more at the moment. I say a few more, I'm working on 3 at the same time, and I will prioritise which one I publish first. But those like in the blogging and writing, that really appeals to my quietness and needing to process information. When I deliver events, I honestly see it more like I'm performing for like an hour or a day. But it's like a thing I do, and then I come back off it and I just go back to my normal world. But I do really enjoy it. I think there's also a perception that introverts as well can't or don't enjoy this bit as well. It just means that it takes a different amount of energy, or we need to have the downtime to process things happen as well. But so for me, my challenges have been, I think, having the confidence to stand up and speak. And I had a bit of a stutter in school, which was hard, and I sort of didn't have confidence speaking and presenting in case I stuttered or slurred my words, and didn't have a lot of experience doing it. So that was definitely one barrier. I still, when I network, because I think networking is still really important, to kind of take that step and speak to someone and say, this is who I am, I'm cool and interesting. Are you cool and interesting? Let's talk. Without using those words, and to kind of have that, that's definitely been one of my biggest challenges. And then still in this realm of social media publishing world, feeling more comfortable with sharing talks and videos online more, and not wanting to hide and just protect things. And some of that's my perfectionism and wanting to have the right things said and the right messages. And some of it is that I don't want to be that public and out there, even though I do a thing where I'm kind of. But then, even though I do that, a lot of my work is about facilitating experiences for other people, so people interact and share and connect. So it's rarely like this where I'm giving, it's more that I'm in the mix of it all and leading an experience. So, and I think having the appreciation of introvertedness helps me deliver experiences that cater for both, because a lot of the training world is geared towards more extroversion and not appreciating mindfulness and downtime and these small conversations and let people write and journal. And so these kind of exercises come from my appreciation of different people's tendencies and needs as well. So I would say it's a very holistic learning business. I would hope. that I'm in. That answers your question?
Just by show of hands, who would consider themselves an introvert? I don't know, people who don't put their hands up or count as a yes. There's quite a few people who consider themselves introverts.
There's an ambivert word as well, people that are ambivert, which is a bit of both, and that's definitely an area in the middle that a lot of people identify with. If you haven't heard that word before, ambivert is a word and you can have it.
Because touching on your question, it does feel like the kind of aggressive, slightly masculine world of business that we would have thought about, maybe Alan Sugar generation. It's or Donald Trump. That has changed a bit, and that possibly is to do with technology change as well, because that inevitably meant that you had people like programmers who aren't traditionally extroverted in the way that we would think, and aggressively so, becoming very successful entrepreneurs. And you're as likely to have someone at the top of one of the world's top companies who's wearing a hoodie and comes from a coding background as you do someone who's wearing a suit and comes from a finance background. So that does change things. And I see a lot more who are neither the coders nor the aggressive suit people, but just creative entrepreneurs. And they're often, some are introverts, some are probably ambiverts, which is the new word that I've learned. But yeah, it does feel different, doesn't it?
I think we're moving away from a world of standardization, and more and more, it will take at least about a couple of generations to understand that everyone operates and thrives in their own environment. And answering your question about future of work, from a large employer's perspective, they want them to thrive in their own environment. So I may be working from a traditional brick and mortar office or co-working spaces or working from home, flexible working, all that is to gear towards oneself to make sure that you perform at an optimal level. Not from a large employer perspective, but from let's say a startup, like from individuals' perspective. I think that human element is, you're right, has to be there. Yes, with the advent of 5G, technology, co-working, that's one of the reasons co-working spaces is emerging. Because back in the day, everyone thought, okay, everyone could work from home remotely. Thinking the world's going to be in a really good place. But then very soon people realized that loneliness, this sense of being in the middle of a vast ocean and not knowing where to go. Going towards the North Star was a problem. So that's why we're seeing a rise in co-working space. But in terms of moving forward, I don't know, I think even despite the advent of 5G and other forms of technology, that human connection needs to be there, in order to create that thriving ecosystem.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's different trends of co-working spaces. Like there's some co-working spaces more designed for what you said, big corporate companies, but allowing people to work remotely, and that's the people. And then there's other ones that are more for independent freelancers or independent business owners. And I think that's interesting as well. I definitely see there's two different patterns and some are in the same building, but some are very catering to one or other market as well. I think that will just rise as well. And I think then within the spaces, then I guess what I'm interested in is how we support people so they participate within it as well. So there's well-being support, there's a sense of community, and there's things that happen that connect people so that you're not just in a big room, but you actually feel part of something. If you're in a different city or community to the rest of your company or country. So I think people need to feel part of something in terms of their company and the bigger picture, and also their everyday people that they can talk to and bounce ideas off. So I think there's different levels of connection we need as well. So it's cool. Any other thoughts or questions?
You put your hand up? Sorry, I picked on you.
So just having a discussion, actually, you mentioned earlier about portfolio careers. So I've come from 10 years working in corporate, and now I guess I'm embarking on a portfolio career, maybe partly by choice and partly by necessity. And that's just something we were discussing about that being the way that actually I've seen a lot of other people in a similar situation. I've ended up having, I'm not sure people, I hadn't heard of portfolio career for about 6 months ago, is where you maybe have, let's say, a core career, maybe doing 2, 3, 4 days a week doing that, and then maybe have, for example, yoga. You may want to be a yoga instructor, and so that then also gives you an income which you may do for Saturday morning or something. And it ends up being quite a modular approach, and maybe that your yoga teaching really kicks off in Christmas time, and then in winter, in summer, you can then find something else to fill the gap. And portfolio approach to a career, which it sounds great. And I really early on in the journey aspiring to having something that's really stimulating, really rewarding, and find that balance. It's also quite daunting of like having to really manage your cash flow. And similar to anyone says in limited being self-employed. But I think that's the future that I'm seeing a lot of people being in similar situations.
Yeah, and it can be really challenging as well. And from the kind of making sure you get enough work and doing things to market yourself and thinking, am I marketing myself as this or I'm this, and what is my brand, and how do I tell the right story? What am I on LinkedIn? What am I on Instagram? What am I on my blog? Like, how are all these different things? I think that's an interesting question, and different people need to answer that differently. But then the sort of the financial management and cash flow, like I got really lucky with even going to art school and being a designer who didn't really care about money until I was 23. My dad and brother are both accountants. So I kind of went back and was like, all that money stuff that you said was really important, like, can I learn all that stuff now? And they're like, sure, like we've been trying to tell you for 25 years to like pay attention to this stuff. But not everyone comes from a family where you have that. But equally, every family is different. You might have a sister or a cousin who's a marketer and can build you a kick-ass website for free because she's kind, and someone else has got to spend £3,000 or £4,000 on. So I think we've all got different people and families. I think it's important to lean on those connections and contacts and appreciate what you do have, and then find other people. And I'm a big believer in like win-win exchanges as well. So like, for example, within Creators Club, there's people who used to be in banking and now they're self-employed. They can do loads of stuff on forecasting and budgets and management, but maybe they're really new to social media. And you get someone else and they can do a win-win exchange and spend half a day a week together once a month, and you get this really valuable skill set exchange. And I see a lot more of that happening. There's still time to pay for an accountant and marketing advice and copywriters, but there's also time to say, if I buy you a coffee, can you look over this for me? And like, which is the right app to use for my expenses? And I think for people in the portfolio world that don't want to outlay a lot of cash, I think that's a really smart thing as well, to think, what value can you add and how can you find that reciprocal benefit, which is what's really helped me. And I still seek to do that sometimes because it's really valuable exchange. And my last point on this, sorry, just one more thing, is I think there's also a balance of still remembering that if you're in the portfolio world and selling yourself, there's still a time to outsource things as well. Like in the last few years, I've learned to do everything, like record videos, edit videos, build websites, do my accountancy, like do my accounting, budgeting and stuff. But there's time to outsource it as well, because we can also overthink things and be perfectionists on things, and knowing when to outsource things can really elevate stuff as well. And a few £100 or £1,000 here and there can really help you like really elevate yourself and stop thinking we can do everything, because whilst we might be able to, it won't help us get where we need to be. And I guess it's making those smart choices of where to invest your money in the right things when we're building a portfolio of careers as well. I think has been really helpful.
When it comes to that decision to outsource, do you think you need to understand how to do it before you outsource? As in, because sometimes people, they'll be starting out and the first thing they want to do is outsource all the stuff they don't know how to do and they're not very good at. I always think that's a bit of a recipe for getting ripped off, or not being done in the right way.
Yeah, because I guess inevitably it comes with the learning. If you have never done it before, so for example, you want some videos produced for your business and you've never recorded a video and edited a video and know what that production process is like, it's difficult to find the right editor and say, or designer and say what is going to happen. But if you've got loads of money, then sure, throw it around and learn that way. But if you haven't got lots of money to throw around, then I think doing a bit of it yourself is important, even if it just gives you an appreciation of how it works. But the kind of entrepreneurial mindset, I think, and if people want to be self-employed, like we've got to be willing to do stuff ourselves. Like I learned to produce videos by editing my holiday videos. Like I would go on holiday and produce a 2-minute clip of a trip to wherever, and that was a way of me linking, this is fun because I'm editing my holiday videos into a 2-minute thing, but I'm also in the background learning about using a different program. So I think there's clever ways of, I guess you said about how we learn and teach ourselves things that can speed up our learning and give us a platform, but then knowing the point to say, I can do this, but it's not worth my time. I can use my time better by going to speak at an event, or by writing blog posts, or going to a networking event, they're better uses of my time, and I can earn this much, outsource things for this much, and then it's better. But then again, that's a skill set and learn to itself in terms of how and when to make those decisions. Helpful?
Yeah, very helpful.
And we can talk more as well.
Yeah, lovely.
Who else is happy to share what they were discussing in their group? Bear in mind, you can just drop the other person in it by saying, this person had a really interesting thing to say.
As long as you have their respect.
Everyone's going to be shy now again. Go on. Oh, no, here we go.
I just already told this, I don't want to dominate
No,
it.
no,
You know,
no.
I'm one of those extroverts, and I realize that I shouldn't dominate the scene. But she mentioned something interesting that, you know, that in the digital world, these people will be even more like offline, so, you know, and disconnected from each other. And I think that's a big danger for introverts, that the world will be built around them, that they can just, every need they have can be served without they interacting with others. And I also see that the world of work, I just put on a home-based contract 5 years ago, so, and I work globally, so if I wouldn't be as social as I am, I could really rot in my flat and only meet with my colleagues once in 2 months. And this was not a choice, people were given this because they wanted to live in a 5 times smaller office. And I was wondering, like, really, like, the tools, technological tools we have are really pushing people many times to even get more isolated from the equation. You know, what's your thought about this? As you define yourself an introvert? Because, you know, for me it's easy, because I can shut up the next person and go to chat with that person, but if I wouldn't be this social, I could really get isolated.
So the potential for the technology, as it is, to be isolating, particularly if you're
And then in the workspace, it's the workplace goes into putting, like, people work from home, you know, like even this is, I work for a huge multinational, and we work from home for 5 years now.
which has the potential to be very isolating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to people knowing what they need as people. Like, how often do you need to interact with people? Some people working from home and seeing people twice a week is enough, and they feel like topped up with their connection with people. Other people need a lot more than that, and it sounds like you're a people person, you like chatting to people, so for you, you'll probably have a higher need in terms of human connection with other people. I guess for me, I'm very interested in how events bring people together, and I think sometimes these sort of events can, people can feel uncomfortable and awkward, and I guess my mission with all of the creative events we run is that the first bit is curated so that people are connecting in a very organic, fun, natural way, doing creative exercises and kind of bring people all to a nice connected level. So then when people do want to create their own conversations, people feel more comfortable. I think it's when people feel uncomfortable to a high enough degree that then they don't. And I guess there's patterns of people like loneliness, feeling. I mean, we've got a minister for loneliness in the UK now. I think actual minister that, because of the impact that this has on mental health, like, this is a huge societal problem. So I think there's issues there that are on a bigger scale. But I think it comes back to individuals knowing what do they need, but then employers as well, or managers knowing who is in your team. And if people need a little nudge to go to a networking thing or make sure they're socializing, I think managers and leaders also have an obligation to care for people in that way as well. And have the conversation and say, what do you need? You need to go and see someone once a week? Have you this week? And if not, like, I think then that long-term builds a stronger relationship with people as well. So I think when you're managing and leading teams of people as well, like, I've got friends who, they take, like, people that don't like networking, instead of taking them there, they'll take them to the gym and do some boxing and just, like, throw them outside their comfort zone, and then it just brings them outside the shell a little bit and they feel more comfortable and natural. Like, for me, learning to swing dance at the moment, I've never really danced before in my life, but it's a really fun way of me coming out of my shell and dancing with different people, and it's like, I think there's different ways to look at how we build our confidence or connection with people, and just knowing what is enough for us or right for us.
Who, just again by show of hands, who's actually working from home predominantly, or there's a couple of people then, one over there. Because I also think, I guess the human contact thing is part of this, but certainly when I work from home quite a lot, unless I'm working directly with clients, you have to put effort into putting a routine around yourself. It's very easy to be in whatever clothes you slept in, at your laptop with a bowl of cereal and TV on in the background, blurring all the lines between your personal life and your work life, because no one can see you. So you have to put a lot of things in place. That probably includes going around to see someone for a cup of tea, or as you say, an exercise class or something. But it is something you have to do proactively, not assume it will happen.
Yeah, but if you think about it, for introverts, the workplace is a great place, but at least you have to socialize, you are among people, while if you are working from home from your 20s, your social network will be
You
minimal.
gradually go.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I would describe myself as an introvert. I will say, working from home, I love it. I get loads more done because no one interrupts me. So there is aspects that tap into that. But I agree, you could let it. There's a more general thing about loneliness, though, that you need to find a way of having that human contact to keep you functioning.
And some people get it through virtual reality headsets or through like Instagram chat messages, and they get that connection with people in a way that wouldn't appeal to me. But I think there's a lot of people that are really happy at home working from home and they feel cool about it. So I guess it's just understanding different people.
I think we need to be mindful of the fact that we are classifying people here, and it's not a binary form, right? It works on a spectrum.
Of course.
And that's something that people tend to forget, because you may be calling yourself an introvert, but then you're not 100% an introvert on that spectrum.
No, exactly.
And it's very rarely you come across. I mean, I would classify people on either end of the spectrum as having some mental form of mental disability in a way. So I think we need to be very careful on the fact that not to have that binary effect. Obviously, people who are introvert are obviously at certain points in their life, as you rightly said, they can have the tendencies of being an extrovert or being an ambivert.
Exactly. I think people understanding what words mean to them as well, and language and culture, we have different things. So I think it's a really important point to raise, that we need to understand what the word means for ourselves and not generalise and put people into.
Absolutely, and especially in this day and age, when you call somebody an ambivert, introvert, they kind of like it's self-actualize it in a way. So even if you're kind of an ambivert, you kind of, and you're told that you're an introvert, and you kind of display most of the tendencies of an introvert, you kind of like self-actualize and say, oh, I'm an introvert and then I'm a loner.
So you're kind of labelled with that.
You're kind of labelled with that, and that's the thing. We need to understand that it's a spectrum, and it's also a moving spectrum. You could be an introvert when you were in your teens, and then you become an extrovert when you're
for sure.
When you're mature.
In different days of the week, people can feel like they need to have.
Absolutely.
I've got friends that will say, "Can we reschedule that? I need to have an introvert day."
No, absolutely.
And which means that what they mean is they need to be at home and chill.
And this is a thought that I thought I'd express with you.
No, it's good. It's very important, And I guess sometimes I use these words because I understand them for myself, but also in different training programs. I think it's just for people's self-awareness of what do they need from other people and for themselves. But it's a really important point. Thank you.